Hey, it's another Ask Me Anything this time. We still don't have a guest. I think that Scott will be returning next week. So today it's me, lonesome me, alone. You know the drill. If you don't, here's the gist of it. I haven't prepared anything. You ask questions, I answer. Answers are sometimes I have no idea. We'll see. Anyways, ask whatever you want. I'll try do my best to answer if I know or I have a strong opinion about it. So let's start right away with Thomas, who says or asks, since Sonnet 4.5 is out, there is no point in using Opus at the moment, right? And then what was your experience with 4.5? So the first question, I rarely use Opus anymore. I still find it somehow maybe slightly better when asking it to write some text for me, and that I will later review and edit and so on and so forth. So maybe for text still Opus, but even if that's the case, there is no strong reason to use it really. For coding, I'm not using Opus anymore at all. 4.5 is better. Not maybe a lot better than Opus, probably very similar to Opus, but faster than Opus, right? So it's much cheaper, I think 4 or 5 times cheaper, and it's faster than Opus. Even if it's not better, even if it's more or less the same, it makes no sense using Opus anymore. Let's put it that way, right? You're just paying more for more or less the same, right? So yeah, 4.5 all the way. I'm working. I hope to publish it maybe in a month or so. A video where I will evaluate different models. Unlike some other folks and so on and so forth, I will not do it based on my opinion, but I will do a real testing of the models with DevOps and what's not. So stay tuned. More is coming, but for now, I will just say that Opus 4.5 is my daily driver. I use it for almost everything. So yeah, don't use Opus. What else? Oh, another one from Thomas. Let's see. Do you think it's worth arguing with AI if it didn't one-shot the PRD requirements? Maybe it's better to find out what went wrong, edit the PRD, and restart it again in new context. 100%. So let's put it this way. Unless I'm working on something very trivial, like some trivial bug or something like that, I never managed to one-shot anything serious. Not with any model, with any client or ID or what's not. I never managed to do it. Maybe I'm not doing it right, but I never managed to do it. I'm using AI with, imagine AI is a car, right? It's kind of one of those self-driving cars where you're still behind the wheel and you have to take control every once in a while, right? Sometimes, so all write operations, I use Cloud Code. I have all write operations as ask me first before you do anything. Show me what you're going to do, ask me, and I will say yes or no. I let it run read operations by itself, but write operations, I'm still behind the wheel at all times, simply because I always have corrections, right? Not necessarily all the time, maybe 1 out of 4, maybe 1 out of 10, but I need to approve it, and it makes mistakes, or not necessarily. I don't know whether it's mistakes or I was not clear, or probably the combination of both. But I cannot one-shot PRDs myself. So what I do all the time, I have my own prompts for managing PRDs, and one of them is update based on analysis or on conversation that we just said or did or something like that. So it does things. I say yes, 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 no. I correct it, right? No, we're going to do it like this. Maybe we talk for a few minutes, what's or not, and then I ask it to update the PRD, right? And so never one shot for me for anything serious. And another thing I did, and you mentioned it in your second question, restart it with a new context. I do not necessarily restart it with a new context. I don't clear the context whenever I instruct it to do something differently. I usually explain it what I really want in the middle of a task, ask it to update the PRD, finish the task, and then I clear the context, right? I usually clear the context at the end of one task, and a PRD can have anything between any number of tasks, right? Depending on what I'm working on. But I could not one-shot it. Okay, next one from T. Lindeza. CLI versus dev portal like Backstage, when to use one or the other, and the other, how to avoid duplicated code and overlap. So when to use one or the other, I feel that depends on a person, right? Different people have different preferences. Personally, I use UIs or GUIs, graphical user interfaces, for some kind of observability, right? If I need to see some metrics and logs and what's not, I would go into Grafana or something like that. For load operations, I personally use always CLIs, right? Always. That's my preference. I mean, heck, I even use, I mentioned earlier, Cloud Code, which is also kind of CLI. It's a terminal replacement for most of the things I do. So for me, it's always CLI, but people have different needs and preferences, and their preferences usually depend on the skill or experience with certain thing, right? If you're very experienced in Kubernetes, you're more likely to use, let's say, kube control over some dashboardy type of stuff like Rancher or whatever people use these days. But then if you're less experienced with something else, or let's say with Kubernetes, somebody else, it might be easier to go through some kind of portal, graphical user interface, right? Now, your second question, so the first answer to the first question is depends on a person. And the answer to the second question is you don't have to have duplicated code. And I think that's the whole point. And that greatly depends on how you design or how somebody designed for you CLI and web UI and what's not. In my head, the perfect design is that you have an API through which you talk to your platform, right? And if you have an API is discoverable by Kubernetes APIs, then you don't need to have duplication of code in CLI and a portal and what's not, simply because they can be very dumb, right? Take kube control, for example, right? If you use kube control as your CLI, or you can be building your own, but I'm just using kube control as an example. Whenever you extend your Kubernetes cluster with some CRDs, you don't have to add code to kube control, correct? Because it works with kube control as is, works with anything in Kubernetes, because nothing is really hard-coded. I mean, operations like get, delete, apply are hard-coded, but what to do with them is not hard-coded simply because it relies on Kubernetes API in this case for discoverability. So if you're building your own CLI and your own portal, you can do the same. If everything is behind the API, you can say, okay, my CLI will go to that API and ask the API, okay, what can I do with you, right? What are the capabilities of that cluster? And present that to the user, right? That would be equivalent of get CRDs. Or, hey, I'm going to apply something to the cluster. Okay, apply whatever you want, because API will accept it or reject it depending on the schema of that something, and so on and so forth. And you can do the same thing with Backstage. Scott, the guy that is very often with me in those sessions, he built an awesome plugin for Backstage that teaches Backstage how to discover everything in your cluster, or everything through some filter if you don't want everything, and just creates those forms automatically and so on and so forth, right? So you don't have to duplicate code if you're API driven, right? Now, if you go with some strange things, there are some modules and this and that, and they're very different and they're not discoverable and so on and so forth, then you will have duplicated code, but you're going in the wrong direction in the first place. You're just trying to wrap something that is wrong, right? And whomever thinks that that's not wrong, not to have APIs, just look at design on any public platform, right? AWS, API first. Azure, API first. Google, API first. They're all API first. So you don't have to duplicate code. You just need to create your APIs and make them discoverable. That's all. More from Stani Lu. thoughts on VARP terminal. It's very interesting, and I think that I admire them in a way, because VARP is one of the few that is not trying to do the same as everybody else, right? So everybody is building, okay, my agent in VS Code, okay, or JetBrains, right? And, okay, you're doing the same as everybody else. Or now, on the other hand, everybody's trying to copy Cloud Code and make a CLI-like experience, right? VARP is kind of different, and I admire that. Now, I don't think it's as good as Cloud Code, so I'm not switching to it, at least not right now, but it has some good ideas. For example, it analyzes your source code and puts it in some internal vector database, which makes finding your code faster. That's very interesting. And a few other things. So it's on a very short list of mine, but still I do not want to replace Cloud Code with VARP. And also, I'm not even sure what VARP is, to be honest. It's not really a terminal. It's not an IDE. It's something in between. It's very cool. Not my choice, but very cool. It probably would be like third on a list or something like that. I'm now talking about agentic coding. VARP is a terminal without agentic part. I never really liked it, but agents are interesting. Ilio, hello Victor, do you have any tips about designing tests in Golang? Say I have a code that interacts with real-time events through APIs. I don't have any special tips. I never did anything special. I just write tests. I was about to say that I'm a freak about test-driven development, but that wouldn't be correct. I was until recently. But that would be a completely separate subject. I stopped doing TDD for a few months now. If you want to know more, just ask me in the comments. But I never used any special frameworks or anything really special. Just kind of Golang native testing works for me quite well, whether it's unit level or integration level. Nothing really special, to be honest. Ilio, by the way, hope you're doing well. Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm always great. I feel great. Thank you for asking, though. To Tabak, probably. I'm not sure. Hello, Victor. What strategy do you use to define the granularity of your cross-plane compositions? Oh, that's a great question. And I don't have the answer that I can give kind of like do exactly this. What I'm trying to deduce is what is the logical, what is something logical for others to use, right? And that depends a lot on who those others are, right? Like, hey, is everybody having more or less one type of application or multiple type of applications, right? If it's on one type of application, I would create a single composition, right? If it's multiple types of applications, then I would think, okay, so how much do they differ? Because what I don't want to do in my compositions is to add like, 10 different use cases in one composition. And then it turns out that the schema of my composite resource definition is too complicated for anybody, right? Kind of, oh, you need 5 things, you need some other 5 things, and you need 10 things, and only few of them match, right? So I think more in the terms of what is the interface that would be appropriate for those users or people working with me or what's not. That's how I start. Now, depending on what is appropriate for them, there are actually 2 things to think about, right? What is the interface that makes sense for users? Not for me. I'm not the consumer of that something. I need to think about my customers, my users. So what is the interface that makes sense for them? Should application and database be bundled together or separate? How they see those things, depends on users. Now, the second part is what makes more sense technically. So for a user, I might have, let's say that for a user, it makes perfect sense to have application and database bundled together as one interface. Let's say that for some other people, kind of equally big number of people, makes sense to have database separate, right? So I would have two custom resource definitions. One kind of application with the database, because that makes sense for you, right? You choose. And for others, database, that would be two composite resource definitions. And then I would probably end up having two composite resources, but one of them, the application with database, would actually use the other one, right? So that's already technical implementation. How can I do compositions in a way that I don't repeat too much? It's okay to repeat code, just not too much. So I might use one composition inside of the other, right? I might split kind of, networking, that should be separate, right? Separate composition, but for users doesn't make sense. So I would never show them that, right? But I would use it because different compositions use the same networking logic or whatsoever. Interface is what users need, and technical implementation depends on how much reusability is there. I hope that answers your question. I didn't give you kind of step-by-step instructions because it really depends on who your customers are, who your users are. Okay. Hey, what do you think about GitHub Spec Kit? Too complicated for me. Unless I'm mixing it with some other, there are just too many prompts over there to work with. My sweet spot is like for managing PRDs, which is what Spec Kit does more or less, and life cycle of development. 4, 5, that's kind of like I want to start working, I want to finish a task, I want to start a new task, I want to finish the PRD as a whole, maybe 1 or 2 more, right? Anything beyond that sounds like a complication to me. And Spec Kit runs that danger of kind of, we're trying to satisfy everybody's needs, so everybody gets something overly complicated. So I did not really, did not grow on me, to be honest. So not very high opinion. It's great piece. It's great idea. What's not right? I just found it easier for me to just write my own prompts that do more or less the same thing. Okay, Shamil. Hey, Victor. Hey, Shamil. I remember you thought something about another approach to CI pipelines. Have you tried Concord CI? If not, you should probably give it a look. I haven't tried it, unfortunately. I will. I'll put it on my to-do list. I cannot promise when, but I will. Cannot say more. I haven't tried it. Minoli Vision. Is DevOps dead? So what's next, AI or what? I don't think that DevOps is dead. Depends how you define DevOps, right? My definition or explanation would be that DevOps is about creating self-sufficient teams, right? So instead of one team waiting for some other team to do something for them because that team is in charge of databases and that team is in charge of this and this team is in charge of them, and then I need to wait for other people. How can we create self-sufficient teams? And that means, in Agile, there was that idea of self-sufficient teams, but those teams were focused only on management development of code itself or application code, to be more specific, and tests. And hey, we are back. I see that a few of you are still there. I'm so sorry. My internet connection disappeared. Now it's back. Hope it stays. So apologies to everybody for bailing on you. Where was I? Yes. Is DevOps dead? What's next? So DevOps is a way to enable teams to do everything that they need to do. Is not dead. I don't believe it is. It's misunderstood in most companies because it's misunderstood to be something technical. It's not. It shouldn't be. And then we have platform engineering, which you can think of. Okay, so that's a technical aspect of DevOps. How can we enable teams to do things like operations? How can they deploy? How can they observe what's happening, and so on and so forth, without becoming experts in that something? Because we cannot teach everybody everything, right? So platform engineering is a technical side of DevOps. And then the part of the question, AI or what, kind of is what's next. AI is definitely next, but it doesn't replace DevOps, right? Or to be more specific, doesn't replace platform engineering. I think that it will actually enable it even more, because with AI now we can do so many more things so much easier or faster or what's not. And my prediction is that actually we will start seeing solutions, projects that are merging platform engineering and AI pretty much. I'm sure that's coming. And not that's coming. That's already, we can see news from different companies in that area that are integrating AI. Most of them is bad, but it's coming, and it's not that dead. So, Stanilu, do you have a Claude Max plan? No, or I don't know. My company is paying for my Anthropic subscription, and I think that we are paying as a company per tokens used, but I'm not really sure. I never run out of tokens. I probably cost my company a lot of money though. From Shamil. Thanks for answering me about KCL in comments. Oh, you're very welcome. I looked at their GitHub. Indeed, no new commits in main repo for 5 months. That's correct. However, other repo seems alive. What made you think that project is dead? I mean, as you said it yourself, main repo does not receive much comments. I've seen issues getting accumulated. I see not getting responses to issues, or less frequent than before. So everything slowed down. I'm not necessarily it's dead, so let me not use that word, but it slowed down drastically and I don't trust it anymore. More from Shamil. A friend of mine wants me to ask your opinion about Rancher for provisioning self-hosted Kubernetes clusters. Yeah, Rancher, I'm not a UI guy. I'm not a UI person. I don't like using UI for operations. And I thought that for kind of observability, Rancher, I never liked it really. And for operations, it's not my cup of tea. So, but if that's the way how you want to operate your cluster, it's probably a good solution. But I cannot tell you more. I haven't even used Rancher probably in a couple of years. Tutabak, thanks. It helped a lot. Another question: how do you see the state of GitOps infrastructure as code and configuration management given the recent advancements in AI? I'm using KCL and XP in prod, multi-cloud, lean team. So I have doubts about GitOps in the future. I think it's time to replace it with something else, but I'm not sure what that something else is. I stopped believing in infrastructure as code as a category. When I say infrastructure as code, I mean tools like Terraform. I stopped believing in them the moment Kubernetes matured. I believe in Crossplane. That's why I'm involved in the project. I believe in Cluster API. I believe in CRO. I mean, my preference is obvious, but all those projects that are extending Kubernetes are simply the next generation, what comes after infrastructure as code. So I definitely, I don't have a high opinion. I was a big user of infrastructure as code, right? Just to be clear, just as I was a big user of configuration management tools, and my usage of those tools goes back to CF Engine that nobody even knows anymore. But I think that simply the benefits of using Kubernetes to manage resources, no matter where they are just too great to be ignored. So I don't have a high opinion of infrastructure as code anymore, assuming that you don't call the tools that I mentioned like CRO or Crossplane or Cluster API infrastructure as code. If you put them in the same basket, then yeah, high opinion. But I think it's time for us to start building APIs. I think it's time for us to leverage Kubernetes for those things. What else? Hi. Are CI/CD pipelines necessary when GitOps with Argo CD is already implemented? 100%. Yes. So think of it this way. Your workflow, let's say your SDLC, let's call it SDLC, software development life cycle involves quite a few things, right? You're checking out the code. You're building some binaries. You're running some tests, and so on and so forth, right? You're doing quite a few things related to the process that ends up something being in production, right? And only one of those many things is Argo CD, and that's It replaces the deployment. So if before in your GitHub Actions or Jenkins or whatever you were using, you were doing kube control apply, or you were doing Helm upgrade, or whatever you were doing there, that one tiny part of your software, of your lifecycle of your applications or whatever you're doing, only that one part is replaced with Argo CD. And the word CD is horrible because CD, continuous delivery, is not only deployment, it's everything from the beginning to the end. It's kind of from the moment you push something to Git until it's running in production. So CI is part of it, right? So CI is until we validate things, and CD extends it to its running in production. So CI is in a way subset of CD. This word CD in Argo is horrible. It shouldn't. It's unacceptable to have it there. So yes, you do need pipelines. You need something that will build your images, that will build your binaries, that will run tests. You cannot do that with Argo. With Argo CD, just to be clear. You have Argo workflows, that could be your choice, but not with Argo CD. Comments, think we lost you, Victor? Yes, you did, but I'm back. I lost internet. Oh, that reminds me, what else? Yeah, we lost. I got lost. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I like this. Stani Lu, last question broke Victor's internet. Exactly. Let me see, where is the next question? Okay, so here, for me, DevOps is more like a philosophy. It's about accelerating continuous improvement, fostering a culture of rapid failure and rapid feedback. It enables better DevOps and shared responsibilities. Yes. But that also means that, kind of I'm very much against DevOps engineer as a role. Kind of, if you're a DevOps engineer, it's great, especially if it pays better. Kind of go for it. That's great. But we shouldn't call it DevOps engineer, right? It could be ops person. It can be SRE, right? It could be platform engineer. Those are all technical terms. DevOps is not a technical term. It's as Kenneth says, it's a philosophy. It's about different way of approaching things, of thinking about things, right? Okay, Thomas, your .ai project is great. Question, most of your PRDs are clean slate features. How do you approach enhancements type of PRDs? How do you structure the project to keep context reasonable? I treat everything as a PRD, it's just a name. I don't want to split it. And not all of them are clean slate features. Many of them, especially now as the time passes, are improvements of existing features or building on top of existing features and so on and so forth. What they simply do, and I call it PRD, you can call it PRD and issues and enhancements or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Whenever I detect something, a problem, or missing, or not working as I expected, or whenever I think of some new feature, I create a PRD, right? That's a GitHub issue and a file in my repo. And then I work on it. Whether that's completely new feature, whether it's enhancement of a feature or an issue, I treat it all the same, to be honest. Let's see what else. Middle division, is Backstage a tool for platform engineering? If not, what tools are enterprises using in the times? So, okay. So, platform Backstage is a web UI, right? It's not a platform under any circumstance. Platform is everything you need to serve services, to allow people to self-serve themselves, right? So saying that Backstage is the tool for platform engineering, it is one of many tools. It's not the tool. It's not the only one, right? Because that would be the same as saying, hey, is AWS Console, AWS Web UI, all there is to it? It's not. There are a lot of things behind it, right? It's just one out of many interfaces. And if I continue using AWS as example, right? Because the logic is the same for your private platform, right? Internal platform. You have at least three major components of a platform. You have API, or you should. You don't necessarily have. Many companies don't. You should. You have an API through which somebody can consume services. You have services themselves. So API would be a schema, how you can, what is the data required to create an instance of a database, right? You have a service that does the actual work. That would be, hey, when I create an instance of something, that backend, call it backend service, right? Service. In case of Kubernetes, it will be a controller. Okay, it will do the work. Oh, somebody requested creation of a database. This is what I need to do. Somebody requested update of a database. This is what I need to do. So API service, that's your platform. That's the bare minimum. Those are the requirements. On top of that, you might have policies. You might have many different things. Now, once you have that API, you can consume that API in one way or two ways or 50 different ways. Just as AWS can be consumed through console, it can be consumed through Terraform, it can be consumed through Crossplane in my case, it can be consumed through, I don't know, Ansible, anything you want, right? And then, so that means that Backstage is one of those interfaces to interact with your APIs. It's just a tiny part of a platform, right? And if you call yourself platform engineer, then you need to design a platform. And probably the last thing you should be thinking of is a user interface of that platform. That's the last thing, because there can be many, right? There was earlier question kind of, hey, CLI or web UI? That comes later, right? Because it can be anything. Now, what in practice companies do, and then a while later realize that they're failing, is that they think that we're going to create a platform by having whatever we have today, whatever that something is. Doesn't matter how good or horrible that something is. And the only thing we're going to do is put the web user interface on top of it, which is Backstage. That's terribly wrong. That fails. It might take you 3 years to realize, but it fails. Because if you take poop and just wrap it as a present, it doesn't smell less, right? So yes, you should use Backstage. Backstage is awesome, but don't think for a second that that's everything you need, right? Now, depending on how big your team of platform engineers is, you might specialize only in Backstage, and somebody else in this, somebody else is that. You need expertise in how to run a database, right? You need expertise in networking. You need expertise in storage. Platform is many, many different things. And Backstage, only one of those. Okay, what else? From Johnny Tolentino, what are you using for auto EDC in front of service such as OpenTelemetry Gateway and Locky Prometheus? That's not my deep area of expertise. So I like to avoid answering questions. I have some expertise, but it's not something I really go in depth myself. So I cannot give you a good answer, to be honest. Nagas, is Dapper a good choice for starting a new project? What do you think about other sidecarless approach with Dapper shared? Dapper is good. I mean, depends. Dapper is growing into being too many things. So I don't even know everything that Dapper does today. And it feels that it's trying to be too many things at the same time. It's trying to kind of like compete in a very silly way with networking and with almost kind of, if you look at marketing material of Dapper, is kind of, oh yeah, you don't need service mesh anymore because we do TLS and we do this and we do that. I think that Dapper is doing too many things. I'm liking it less over time. But if you talk about Dapper core value, right, what Dapper started with, and that's to make connections with dependencies like databases, pub subs, what's not transparent so that you can easily switch from one to another. That's awesome part. Not necessarily something that everybody needs because it depends on the complexity of your system. But if your system is reasonably complex, using Dapper to streamline connections to your databases or whatever your applications need is good. It's awesome. New features, I'm not sold on it. Shamil, how to organize integration tests in my CI pipeline? Completely lost. How can I test microservices against APIs of another one? Oh, okay, yes. Ideal way is that you test I don't like testing the system as a whole, everything, right? Because systems grow in size, and that's close to impossible to test. Where most of my tests end is when I can confirm that my application fulfills contracts of other applications. So let's say that I'm going to make it simple, right? Real systems are much more complicated. I'm now working on application A. Application B, and that application A needs to talk to application B, right? Now I can set both of them up, and I can set the rest of the system and run some kind of integration tests, and I would die trying. What I'm really interested is whether application A fulfills the contract of the API of application B, right? Am I sending the right request to it? I don't care whether application B works. I know it does. It's somebody else's problem. Somebody else made sure that application B works. And I'm trying to make sure that application A works. And I can ensure that, apart from many other things, does it fulfill the contract with other applications? And for that, I don't need even that application running. If that application provides its own mocks, hopefully auto-generated, I can just spin up that mock and say, are you really sending the correct requests? I don't care whether the application B works. I care only, am I talking to it correctly? If I am, my application works. And somebody else is going to ensure that their application works. Now, you might say, hey, we need the last round of testing, whatever you want to call it. Last round of testing to be the whole system, go for it. I don't believe that really works. I don't believe that that's really effective, because if you're talking about testing the whole system as a whole, you're unlikely to ever do it. It's unlikely to ever work, and it is unlikely to ever show you how the system behaves in production. I'm much more concerned when we talk about that level is testing in production. Am I capturing the right signals? Am I gathering the right data from production? Am I able to remediate the issues fast, and so on and so forth, right? So I ensure that my application works. I ensure that my application fulfills the contract with other applications. I deploy my application alone. I never deploy multiple applications at the same time, because no human being can work equally fast on all applications, release them and finish them at the same time. I ensure that my application works. Somebody else assures that their application works. We test it in production. That's monitoring. That's alerting. We have rules, what should be done if something doesn't work. And we have canary deployments. So when I start releasing new application, it goes to 5% of the users. We capture, is this working? Is this working? No. Undo, right? Go back to having 100% of the old release. If it does work, gradually increase. That's basically testing in production. MK, can vibe coding supersede learning programming languages, Python, Go, the normal way for DevOps SRE? No. I mean, today, nobody can figure out what's going to happen years from now. Nobody. Whomever tells you that they know what's going to happen cannot. Today, it does not, right? For many different reasons. First of all, if you don't know programming, coding, you will not be able to detect when it does something it shouldn't be doing. You will not be able to distinguish good from bad. You will not even be able to give it correct instructions. So if you take two persons, and let's say that we do one-shot vibe coding. I think that one-shot is silly. It does not work. But for the sake of argument, let's say that we do one-shot coding. And let's say that there is me and somebody who never wrote code. Even from that very beginning, if we both write prompts and I say, I want this and that person says this and that, my result from AI will be so much better than somebody else's, because I know what to ask for, right? And then when it starts doing stuff, I know when to detect when it goes bad. You need to know how to write code. You don't have to write code necessarily, but you need to know how to write code. I rarely write code myself anymore, right? but I review absolutely everything that AI writes for me. Okay, from Jean Duplessis. With the acceleration of AI and the way things are trending, do you think platform engineering is still the right model to build on for the future? Will it still be relevant in 3 to 5 years from now? Yes, absolutely. So platform is a way how people in your company interact with the system. How do they deploy? How do they observe? What's not, right? We had platforms forever, just to be clear. The term is new. But if you have, what is Grafana if not part of your platform, right? What is Backstage if not platform? And you say, oh, Backstage is new. Will it survive? I don't know. Grafana exists forever. That's part of your platform, right? Your terminal commands, kube control, that's all part of the platform. Platform is your system and how you interact with that system. So that will survive. The better question is how much platform and how we develop platforms or build platforms will be affected by AI. It will be affected a lot, right? The interfaces will change. Why would they have some, I don't know, like forms to fill? If I can say ask AI, when I say ask AI, in this case, I mean custom-made system, agentic system for my platform. So not directly Claude and Cursor. That's not enough. Just to be 100%, you need so much more than Claude Code and Sonnet or whatever. But if you set up agentic system, that becomes your platform, right? Or part of the platform. So platforms are staying. They're just going to transform themselves a lot. Kevin, we started to use Crossman in my company. I love it. I see great potential. Thank you so much. That's why I still stick with Crossman. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's where we are going with infrastructure as code. And I cannot share where we're going further than that, though, but stay tuned. From Shamil, we are using the good old Git workflow branching model. Hardest part for me is image promotion. Considering we use tags for semantic versioning, I don't know how to not build same image twice. I'm not sure what the problem is to build same image twice, right? I don't use Git workflow myself, but I just have a branch. I create a pull request and merge it to main, right? But wherever you build it once, right? You build it, and let's say that you tag it. And in other workflows, whatever that branch goes, it goes from there somewhere else, and it's merged somewhere else, doesn't matter, kind of thing. You don't have to build it anymore. You just need to record somewhere what is the version you just built. I just built 1.7.5, right? And afterwards, I just don't build it anymore. That I'm not 100% sure what the problem is. If you can clarify what is the problem to avoid building, assuming that you recorded somewhere what is the tag that you built the first time you run the workflow. If you can clarify more, I can do my best to give a reasonable answer instead of, I don't know what the problem is. Sorry for that. Okay, any more questions? I'm going to give you like half a minute to start typing your questions. Unfortunately, I cannot see whether you're typing or no. Again, apologize. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that, we have a sponsor. So let's put the sponsor here while you're typing your question. Yeah, Octopus. Oh, let me share my screen as well. That would be absolutely awesome. Octopus is the sponsor of this video. And where is my screen? What happened here? It's a disaster today. I lost it. When I lost internet, my computer just went bazooka. So I cannot show the screen, but octopus.com/support. If you need help with Argo CD, if you need professionals to help you, if you need support with your Argo CD, or not Argo CD, with anything Argo workflows, Argo events, anything Argo, if you need help support from people who actually maintain those projects, if you need help or anything else, that's Octopus, right? Octopus.com/support. Those are the people that are actively working on Argo CD and other Argo projects. They can help you out. and you should check them out, right? Especially if you're enterprise company, big company, check them out. And thank you, Octopus, so much for sponsoring. I was supposed to put the screen here, but I lost everything when I lost internet. So I'll do it next time, I promise, including to remember to put you earlier, not when internet went away. Sorry for that. Octopus, thank you for sponsoring. Let's see more questions. What else? Let me see. Where was I? Where was it led? Okay, we're using good old. No, I honestly answered. So you're saying that service B should contain mocks against which I should test service A by pulling those mocks from repo of the service B. Yes, pulling those mocks from repo, or somebody running those mocks as a server. Or so here's the thing. Let's say that you don't want to do that, right? You don't have mocks. Somebody else is not really good at maintaining mocks of their server and so on and so forth. Let's say that you don't want to do that. You want to do integration testing, but you want to do it for one application, right? I'm going to make assumption, Shamil, correct me if I'm wrong. You release one application at a time, not the whole system. If you're having distributed monolith, that's a completely different story. So you want to release one application, right? You know that the system already works. It's already in production, right? So you're concerned whether that application you're about to release, single application, works. What you can do is connect that application to production or to staging, right? Anywhere. Deploy it as part of your PR and configure it. There are plenty of tools that will do the network routing, so that your application thinks that it's talking to some local other application. It will talk to production. It will confirm that it works. Or if you cannot talk to production, to staging, you just have to have a system setup, but as if it's production, or if it's production. And then on top of that system, you run your application and you connect it to the rest, right? And then if you say it's working, right, by running tests of that application, again, you don't care about the rest of the system. You're not releasing the whole system at the same time. Hopefully, I hope you don't. Test whether it works with those dependent applications in production or production-like environment. Release it to production, it becomes production, and then somebody else will want to release some other application. It will be able to test against your application and the rest of the system in a production or production-like environment. Now, I suspect, based on your answer, that you're not releasing one application at a time, but that you need to combine multiple applications to have a call release. Quit the company. That's the case. Hi, Victor. Have you tried out Opsy or Holmes GPT and your thoughts? Opsy, I haven't tried it. I did not even know it exists. I will. Holmes GPT, Robusta, let's say. Let's start with that. Company behind Holmes GPT, probably the best solution for alerting. They're now going into a agentic world. It's very promising. But like everybody else, they're still trying to figure out what that agentic is. So Helm GPT, I would put it in a promising category, right? Still work to still some work to do. Aco, ćeš baš šta ima? Oh, that's in Serbian. I was born in Serbian or maybe Bosnian, something like that, or Croatian. Anyway, hey Aca, what is your favorite coworker? I don't know whether other coworkers are listening, so I cannot say that. I'm sorry. Okay, actually, I know. If you ask me what was my last year my favorite coworker, I could not be able to say that, not to offend others. But this year, my favorite coworker is Claude. That's it. My lifetime desire not to work less with other humans is finally becoming true. I love it. Coworker favorite, Claude. What makes you most grateful in your DevOps experience? What events are you participating next? Wherever can we meet? I'm going to, this weekend, I'm going to Stockholm for API something event. I'm terrible. I didn't remember the name of the event. I'm ashamed now. But the big one coming, that's KubeCon in Atlanta, right? That's kind of I go to many events, but two main ones. That's KubeCon US, KubeCon Europe afterwards. Maybe China or India, we'll see. So if you're coming to Stockholm next week, whatever is the name of the event, we can see each other there. If you're coming to Atlanta, we can see each other there. I could probably have 3 or 4 more scheduled, but to be honest, I have so many things scheduled that I check kind of over the weekend. Okay, where am I supposed to be somewhere next week? If not, okay, I'll check it next weekend. I don't even know which events I'm going to. From Matza, I love watching you, mate. Keep the good workout. Thank you. And cool. I share the same opinion, trying it out at the moment. Yes, easy peasy. Yes. Try it out. I tried it. Holmes, I don't know about the other one. Promising, not yet there. Sorry, Robusta folks, if you're watching, but very promising. Ops is currently only at 2 up, no API or SDK. Again, I don't know what it is. I'll write it down and check it out. I must say that I'm now more focused on. I never stopped coding, but let's say that smaller percentage of time was coding before. I'm now back in coding now. Now with Plot Code, I'm less into using existing tools and more into figuring out how to build ones. And Concursia, yes, I brought it already down. The best way to update the Kubernetes cluster, that's GitOps. Just make the change, push it to Git, push it somewhere where it will deploy to some other non-production environment, test it more, and then promote it again by pushing changes to Git to the production, and off you go, right? The best way to update the Kubernetes cluster is by pushing changes to Git. Assuming that you're talking about updating stuff in your cluster. If you're talking about updating cluster itself, like upgrading Kubernetes version from one version to another, that's mostly solved problem. If your application, whatever you're running in your cluster is architectured well and robust, then upgrading cluster is, at least in cloud, it's boring now, unless you're really strange situation. They're all doing now rolling upgrades. They all now replace one or multiple nodes, but not all at the time. Your pods or whatever else you're having are transitioning to the new node. As long as you don't have single replica applications, you're fine by using rolling upgrades that are already provided by AWS, Google, Red Hat, Rancher, whomever you're using, unless you're rolling your own, is doing rolling upgrades. You should be more concerned about your applications than cluster itself. And when I say concerned about your applications, making sure that your applications are made to be resilient. If they assume that they will always run on the same node forever and ever, then you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, we are 3 minutes until the top of the hour. If anybody has any other question, let me know. Give me once. Type. I'm going to count to 5. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. Okay. Yeah, we're at the top of the hour anyway. Sorry for the internet interruption, out of my control. See you all next week, hopefully with a guest. See you all. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day.